going to share some of my tips and techniques. This is an open forum, so if anytime you guys have a question, I better raise your hand right now. Get that hand loosened up for raising. So if you have a question or a comment, or if you disagree with me, feel free to interrupt, okay? Because I do not claim to know it all right? I just know a little bit that keeps me pretty happy and pretty successful and keeps this belly full of crappie. So I'm going to share with those with you guys today. My seminar is going to cover football fishing. All right, sounds funny, but the Chiefs, hey man, you got to love them, right? So I tied that in. Football fishing, because football is a game of what? It's a game of, come on, I know we got some football fans here. It's a game of inches, right? They say football is a game of inches. You knew that, right? I got a prize for you. That's not just a beautiful fashion ring. That's actually a braid cutting ring. It's got a little razor on there, so be careful with that. Football is a game of inches, just like crappie fishing. It doesn't matter what kind of gear you have. Doesn't matter what kind of boat, what kind of pole. Doesn't matter anything. If you don't get that bait within inches of those fish, you're probably not going to have a very successful day. So we're going to talk football fishing, game of inches. Guys, there's some more chairs up here if you guys want to come on over. That way I won't have to scream. We're also going to be talking crappie gear. Everybody loves to buy crappie gear. Am I right?
Yeah.
It's an addiction. How many people have ever bought something that they've never used? Huh? Yeah. Me too. It's like, that is my son. That's the very first crappie, or very first fish he ever caught all on his own, where he casted it out, he reeled it in, and he caught it. Because once he got the hang of it, he didn't want any help. He wanted to do it on his own. And you can kind of see, the wild in the eyes, and the passion, and just the overall, wonderment in a kid's eyes. So take a kid fishing, all right? As long as you have permission. Don't take strangers' kids fishing. This day and age could end up in bad news. But take a kid fishing. Take your grandson fishing. Take your neighbor, friend fishing. Who out there owns boats? Put a kid on a boat. You put them on some crappie. Oh my gosh, they're going to have a great day. Even if you can catch them on the spawn on the bank, take a kid fishing. Am I right, Troy?
Yes.
So take some friends fishing. I saw Kim Burnett on the bank one day. He's like, Kirby, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm fishing. You want to get in this boat? Kim's like, heck yes, I do. And we fished and had a good time. And it was a good time, am I right? So take some friends fishing. You're going to develop relationships that last you a lifetime. People that'll bail you out of jail on a Thursday night if you get into trouble. Maybe I'm speaking from personal experience. $1 million question. Color selection. It can be confusing, right? You go down that aisleway, how many colors are there? I can't count that many, can you? There's a zillion different color combinations. I'm going to make it super simple for you guys so that you catch more fish, because that's what we're all here to do, right? Catch more crappie? All right. So I take this opportunity to thank my sponsors, Bass Pro Shop, B&M Poles, the best third-generation family-run pole company on the planet, specifically designed for crappie and catfish, the two fish we love to eat the most, am I right? To heck with all those other fish. This type of belly doesn't just happen fishing for bass, for trout. This happens for crappie and catfish, all right? So hopefully you guys have a belly like me. We gotta talk crappie fishing, we gotta talk crappie hunting. That's a picture of me and my bird dog. Who out there likes to hunt birds? Anybody? Who out there hunts pheasant or quail? Well, let me tell you something. Crappie are the quail of the underwater world, okay? You take a look at quail. Look at this. There's a bunch of quail right there. There's a quail right there. A bunch of quail right here. They're always on cover. You know why? Everything's trying to eat a quail. They're delicious. Just like crappie, right? We're trying to eat crappie. Everything's trying to eat crappie. And if you take a look at some of the classic illustrations of crappie, they're always on structure. Am I right? They're always in brush. Look at these crappie right here. Where are they at? They're in the brush. Because believe me, there's 5 fish in there that have been eyeing them all day. And they can smell that fish that's frying up there. And that alligator guard's like, woo! I dare one of those crappie to come in my direction. Because they're going to eat them. All right? There's some more great crappie illustrations there. Always in brush. Take a look at some of the underwater photographs you see of crappie. They're always around something that they can get away from predators. Because there's a lot of predators. A lot of things are trying to eat quail, like badgers and coyotes and Turkeys will eat quail. Everything likes to eat quail, just like everything likes to eat crappie, bass, chowcat, flathead, white bass, wipers, walleye. They all eat crappie. We like to eat crappie, am I right? Even my bird dog, Deej, he loves crappie. Sushi. He eats them like crazy. Believe me, when you feed a bird dog a live crappie, or if you let him get away with one, it's a mess the next day. I would not suggest feeding your dog sushi. Guess what else likes to eat crappie? Crappie eat crappie. That's right. They're very cannibalistic fish. They'll eat their young, just like guppies do in your tank, all right? It's violent out there. It's a tough, tough world for a crappie when everything wants to eat them because they're so delicious. That's a crappie I found floating because it was choking on another crappie. So I scooped it up in the net, threw that little one away, and threw that big one in the live well, and now he's right here. Touch it. Do not live without in the summer. If you're driving your hot car, what's the first thing you do? You turn on the AC, baby. That's right. Crappie are the same way. They have to have an AC. Anybody want to know for a prize what crappie air conditioning is called? Huh? Current? That's a good guess. Good guess. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thermocline.
Huh? Who said thermocline? Right there, my friends. Oh! All right. That's a bad toss on my part. I'm no Patrick Mahomes. Let's talk crappie gear. Okay? My favorite crappie pole, and there are only 3 of them left in the whole building, are the B&M Sharpshooter 6s. Okay? If you notice, I've got 2 of them right here. I always have 2 of them rigged. Actually, I always have 3 of them rigged. One I always have rigged with a slip bobber on. Okay? First thing I do when I get to an area, I guesstimate where I think these crappie are going to be, or I look on my Garmin live scope, or I find out where they are. I throw a cork out with a minnow, and I just set it there. And a lot of times I can't even get to my second pull, that cork will go down so quickly. The other thing I have on is a bottom bumping rig, which uses a bell sinker and a loop knot with that number 2 true turn hook above it, and I put it about anywhere from 6 inches to a foot above where the crappie is, or where the bottom is, or where the brush pile. And this is a great technique because first off, if you get hung up in the brush, and like we talked about earlier, you want to be fishing brush. If you get hung up in the brush, it's like, I'm in the brush, I'm in the brush. So many of my clients will be like, hey, I'm hung up, what do I do? I'm like, lower the rod tip. What? Lower the rod tip. Lower the rod tip. The weight of the bell sinker and the fact that this number 2 turn hook with that cam action shaft turns away from pressure, you won't get hung up as much. You just got to finagle it out of there. I can fish for a week with 1 hook and 1 bell sinker and not lose it, okay? But I've been mastering this technique. I can feel. I can use my imagination to feel. If you take it, and if you feel this, I want you to take this pole right here and just hold it and feel and drop that bell sinker on that concrete a couple times. Now close your eyes and visualize what you're doing. You can see that bell sinker hitting it. So it's the same way with the brush pile. This pole is so sensitive that I can cast it out and I can feel when I'm retrieving a crappie magnet, I can feel that I'm over a brush pile, or I can feel that there's moss on my spinner, or I can feel on this particular setup right here, because of the sensitivity of this rod, I can feel that my minnow's got off. I've missed a bite. I don't feel the resistance of a minnow. It is so sensitive. What I want you to do, hold this right here, just like this. You got it? Yep. I want to see if you can feel me whispering. I'm going to talk as low as I possibly can. Is that crazy? That is crazy. Trey, you give it a shot back there. Hold that pole and see if you can feel the sensitivity of just me. 1, 2, 3. Can you feel me? I'm just talking as quietly as I possibly can. All right. It's good that you have a very sensitive pole. And this particular pole is a 1-piece graphite. And to find a 1-piece high-density modular graphite pole like this, with any other brand, you're going to pay close to $150, $250. If you get into G Luma stuff, that that elite brand stuff, you're going to pay $280, something like that, for a 6-foot 1-piece graphite. These run $69, and they're on sale for $20 off this week. And we got 3 of them left in the store, so I don't expect to see any more of those. And don't try to buy mine, all right? These are mine. This is a great utility pole. Okay, it's got the sensitivity, it's got the feel for you to use corks, bell bond thing. A little bit of Roadrunner or crappie magnet presentation. Okay, these are great overall poles. Now, another thing that I've just recently started using are long poles. Anybody use an 8-foot, 10-foot, 12-foot pole? You guys probably catch more crappie than I am, because I'm just now catching on to that, okay? The reason I'm catching on to it is because I've got this high-end sonar, and I can see what crappie do in front of me, behind me, in live time when my boat approaches them. And what I'm doing is I'm altering my fishing to how those crappie behave. Because a lot of times, you know, before I had this sonar, I would know where my brush pile was because I'd marked it. Well, I would drive over it again, I'd drop my buoy marker, and then I'd swing back around it and adjust for the wind, spot lock that, and I would I don't know what's going on. I would fish for literally 10 minutes before I caught one. I would literally fish for about 10 minutes. And the reason that I was doing that is because when I'm driving over those fish on that brush pile with my boat and I'm coming back on them with my trolling motor and then I'm spot locking, I spooked all those fish because they're like quail. They bust up, the covey busts up and those quail, like something's going on, something's scaring us. They get the heck out of there. Now eventually they return to their home, but sometimes it takes 10 or 15 minutes. Now I don't do that anymore. What I do is, I've noticed because of their behavior, that crappie are a very skittish fish because everything's trying to eat them. So what I've added to my arsenal is an 8, 10-foot, and a 12-foot pole. Now, all right, I'll come up on them, I'll see them in the live scope, I'll stop about 12 feet from them, and I'll go straight down 10 or 15 feet. I'll hook that crappie, I'll pull him up, and boom, swing him right in there, and I'll catch the whole school. This is also a great technique to use during on the spawn. Who has ever been out in those trees in Hillsdale and tried to catch them and got their stuff hooked on something behind them? You know what I mean? Or hooked on something under the water that you can't see. With a long pole like this, if there's a brush pile right here, I can fish right between all you people and not disturb you and not touch either one of you. And if there's crappie right over there, all I gotta do is just put this jig right here. Guess what? There's some crappie right there behind those guys. You guys are all trees, and I'm in there. And I'm fishing, and I'm not disturbing it, and I'm not spooking them, and I'm catching a lot more fish with a longer pole. This is probably the premier fishing rod for crappie. Who's ever heard of Sam Heaton out there? Legendary crappie fisherman. He is now the voice of the American Crappie Trail. But he's got this Sam's super sensitive rod, Portuguese cork handle, and these come in about 8 different foots, or 8 different sizes. So this is the 12-foot right here. All right, we have some 10-foots and some 8-foots over here. You guys want me to answer some questions after the seminar? I'll be glad to do that. But 3 poles. You can have 3 poles in Kansas. I know we're not allowed to spider rig with 8 or 9 poles, but pay that extra $2 or $3 to get that 3-pole thing. Have a couple of poles, one with a slip bobber. Everybody know how to use slip bobbers? If you're not, don't be. I only learned how to use a slip bobber about 4 years ago. So if you don't know, I'd love to teach you. Have one with a bottom bumping rig on it, and then have one with some type of your favorite jig, your crappie magnet, where you can reach out and get those unspooked crappie. All right, I guarantee you, with those techniques right there, you'll add more crappie in your boat. Spring crappie go shallow for 2 reasons. One, the water temperature has to be perfect. Anybody want to take a guess what the water temperature needs to be? Yeah, 68. What? 65? That's close enough. We're going to give you a fashion fishing ring there. Nice catch. Anybody else? 59. That's a good guess too. That's right. 61, 59, 65, anywhere in there, as long as it's been 2 or 3 days.
62?
62? Okay, yeah, well, that's fine. Obviously, somebody wants a ring. Don't anybody say 63. But basically, when that water holds for about 3 days, okay, with good temperatures, good weather conditions, and good light from the moon, those crappie are going to spawn. Who deer hunts out there? Anybody deer hunt? Okay. When they go into the rut, they don't go into the rut just because it's November, because it's around Thanksgiving. They go into the rut because of the light from the moon that stays on for about 4 days. It saturates the deer's pupils and makes their ovaries and their reproductive organs trigger their breeding instincts. Same way with crappie. Once you get 3 or 4 nights of solid moonlight, that moonlight, and it's clear, and it's the right temperature, it triggers those crappies. The moonlight comes in through the rays, gets in their eyes and sends them into a spawning frenzy. So sometimes it'll be around Easter, because sometimes Easter will fall, 25th, 27th of April. Other times it's the second or third week in May. And when you have different types of weather that's combating you, like 2 years ago, we had 3 different spawns. We had one in the middle of April, we had one in the first week of May, and then weather went to hell in a handbasket for 3 weeks. And then guess what? They came back and they spawned the second week of June. All of them came in, because sometimes it takes that whole lake to be pressurized with the right elements to trigger all those fish into the spawn. So keep that in mind when you're looking for crappie that are spawning in the spring. Monitor that temperature, that water temperature. Make sure it's about 59 to 65 degrees for about 3 days straight. Then take those people fishing, because you're going to sling. I want everybody to raise their hand and repeat after me. Raise your hand. The best crappie fishing, say it.
Best crappie fishing
is in winter and summer. Winter, summer. It's the best, absolutely the best. The hotter the better, the colder the better, because it makes those crappie spool up. Earlier, I fooled you about the gift certificate to McDonald's, right? I apologize about that. Not a good way to win a crowd over, am I right? But let's think about this. Let's think, we're all a school of crappie right now, all right? So, if per se we're a school of crappie and we're schooled up here at Bass Pro, and we saw some hamburgers up there where those geese are, where those turkeys, we'd be like, I have a lot of hamburgers up there. Would we go get them? No, it wouldn't be worth the time. But if those hamburgers just slowly drifted down, just hovered right here above your eye, eventually one of us will get hungry and we try that hamburger, right? And we're being real to the heavens. Or, let's say we're not hungry, okay? And those hamburgers drift down from the heaven, and it's lingering in front of your face. Hamburger, right here. How long would it take, if you weren't hungry, for you to swat that? Kirby, get that hand out of my face. Get that hamburger out of my face. Well, guess what? Crappie, like all fish, don't have hands, so they can't swat. The only way they can defend an area is to actually take it in their mouth, run over, and spit it out. Who's ever seen bass footage of bass on the spawn when they're protecting the nest? If something comes into the nest, those bass will suck up a frog, or they'll suck up something, and they're so focused on whatever they're doing and protecting that nest, they don't eat it. They just run over about 5 feet and spit it out. Same way with crappie. They don't want to move. They are in air conditioning. Who's ever been in air conditioning in front of the television and not wanted to move during the summer? A couple? So you're going to swat some things out. You're going to say, no, I don't want to do that. Crappie don't have the ability to swat, so they'll hit things. So if you put something right in their face for a long time, you're going to get them to take it. So it's a game of inches. So with the sonar and everything's out there, I want you to remember, always fish above those crappie. Don't fish below them. And keep it inches from their face. They will hit it. Sometimes regardless of the color, sometimes regardless of the shape, sometimes they just want it out of their face and they'll hit it. But if you dial in what they like to eat, if it looks like a hamburger, if it smells like a hamburger, they're going to devour it, all right? So keep that in mind. Spinning reel, okay? You can go crazy with spinning reels, all right? I would suggest the Johnny Morris Signature Series. It is an incredible bang for its buck. It's actually manufactured by the Daiwa company, so it's very comfortable. Some of the Fuego reels that Daiwa puts out, smooth backing, and most importantly, an incredible drag system. Now, why is that important? Now, I know you think it's important. I'm going to give a tip out that I don't even know if I've ever shared with Gary. And Gary's gonna go, oh, when I tell him this technique. Because I think he thinks I'm crazy, because Gary and I fish together a lot. When you have a good pole with a good drag system, listen, hear that? Hear that? Every time I set the hook, you hear that, boom. I throw it out there and I cast it, boom. You hear that little thing. Gary's fished with me for how many years? 3 or 4 years, 5 years? And he always hears me doing that. You know how many times I hear Gary set the hook? Every time I set the hook, you know what I hear? This is what I hear. Nothing. Nothing. Who catches more fish between me and you, Gary? Honestly, I do. You know why? Because my drag is set at a tension that doesn't rip those crappies' mouths. If you have that drag going out, what you're doing is you're setting the hook, but you're not ripping a gap that big in that crappie's mouth. And then you're just real easy to nag them in. You don't have to do any of this horse cranking and reeling, because we're not bass fishing, we're not channel cat fishing. Just a solid retrieve. And when I get them up, they call crappie paper thin mouths. Am I right? Everybody ever heard that? When you set that hook and you don't have that drag set right, well, all you're doing is ripping a hole that long inside that crappie's mouth. And if there's any time that any tension, any flip or any flop, while you're reeling that crappie in, which they will flip and flop, your hook will fall out. You mad at me, Gary? A little bit. So I'm going to give you little tips and techniques in my presentation that'll help you out. But the dry with anything, it doesn't have to be a fancy reel with crappie fishing. You can catch them on a cane pole. That's how B&M started. B&M Company. Everyone take a stab at what it stands for. Besides you, Gary, I know you know what it stands for. Everybody know what it stands for? Huh? Bassmasters? No, that's a good one. B&M. Anybody?
Bamboo.
Huh?
Bamboo.
Bamboo? You're close. It stands for brooms and mops. They used to sell brooms and mop handles in the Sears and Roebuck Kylo back in the 1800s. And they had kids coming up wanting the remnants of all the broom handles because they would make cane poles out of them to go fishing in their creeks and their lakes. After a while, B&M got smart, like, we should make fishing poles. So that kind of took on a life of its own. Now it's a third generation company, has the best customer service, and has a great relationship here with Bass Pro Shop. So check out B&M Poles. You won't be disappointed. Also, here's the $1 million question. You walk those aisles of Bass Pro, how many color combinations do you think are over there? Zillions. I'm going to dumb it down. It's going to be so easy for you guys. We're going to talk the $1 million question, what colors to use. And to do that, we have to talk about trout fishing. That's my beautiful wife there catching a wonderful trout. You're such a dirty dog. That guy in the Chiefs and the Royals goes, that's not my wife, that's my girlfriend. Anyway, it's just a pretty girl. But we got to talk trout fishing. Match the hatch. Anybody know what that means? Match the hatch, trout fishing. I know Kim knows. That's right. Match the hatch means match the bugs that these trout are eating. So if you have a lure, you want it to look just like what's coming up from the bottom, what's hatching from the bottom. Because a lot of these insects will drop their eggs, they'll go to the bottom, they'll hatch underwater, then the insects will float up, the trout swarm on them, okay? So you gotta match the hatch. If they're eating San Juan worms that are coming up from the bottom, you wanna use what? A red worm for catching trout. Same way with crappie fishing, match the hatch. And you do that by understanding what the hatch actually is. And the hatch is shad. These crappie don't eat jigs every day, otherwise they'd be in my belly. They eat shad. They don't eat minnows. There's no such thing as a minnow. So we bring it to the lake. They don't eat worms unless we bring it to the lake. They eat what they eat every day, and that is shad. And there's 4 different types of shad in this particular area. There's the gizzard shad, the thin fin shad, the big head shad, and the American shad. Anybody want to take a stab at what the most predominant shad in the lakes in Kansas are? I got one more ring. 1 in 4 chance. Huh?
Gizzard?
Gizzard shad. No. American shad. You got it. That's right. Very good. It's the American shad. It's this one right here. Okay. Now one thing. I want you guys to look at all these color combinations. Who out there fishes with chartreuse and black? That's a great crappie color. Am I right? What does that look like? Chartreuse and black. Am I right? Who uses purple in chartreuse? I know I do. It's my favorite color. Guess what the color is? That's purple. Chartreuse. Who uses white in chartreuse? Another great crappie color. Look at that shad. It's white in chartreuse. And if you want to make it even look more like a crappie shad, put a black head on it. Because all these shad have a black dot on it. So you want that color contrast that looks exactly what these fish are used to eating. Take a look at the comparisons. Look at that. White and chartreuse, white and chartreuse. Purple and chartreuse. Purple, chartreuse. There's a chartreuse stripe, chartreuse eye. Black and chartreuse. Black and chartreuse. Simple enough. You don't need all those crazy colors. You need maybe 4 or 5 colors. And whoever goes fishing at a lake that they've never fished before, so easy. call that state lake and say, hey, what's the predominant shad in your lake? And then you'll know what color to use. They tell you the shad, you go look it up on Google Images. You know that I'm going to start with a blue and white lure if their shad looks blue and white. Look at that crappie. I found that big crappie eating that big shad. That shad is purple and white with black tips. Guess what I put on? Purple and white with a black head. And I had a stellar day because I was catching monster crappie that were attacking shad that big. Same way with this. Take a look at this. There's the ones that match it. Let me fast forward this. Look at that crappie. It's got a lot of orange in it. On a clear water, orange is a phenomenal color. Or a cloudy, murky lake, orange has a lot of contrast. See that beautiful crappie right there? Put some orange on it, you catch it. But most importantly, we know crappie eat crappie, am I right? Crappie eat crappie. Use a bait that looks like a crappie. This is called Butler Gold by Crappie Magnet. Tell me that doesn't look like that. There's the white, there's the green. Match what these fish like to eat, and I guarantee you'll be successful. But most importantly, regardless of lures, minnows are the best because it's a swimming thing. It's hard to beat a swimming thing. But if you're going to use jigs, if you're going to use spinners, make certain that they are the color that these fish are accustomed to eating. Everybody got that? Everybody say, match the hatch.
Match the hatch.
You got it.